Welcome back to the Football Tragics. It's your host, Tony. I'm riding solo today. So I'm going to hide behind these results because, yes, it is 11 p.m. at night. I'm a little bit worse for wear, baggy eyes, tired. It's been a long day, but we still want to get this content out to you. Obviously, Aaron Mortier would have loved to be on this episode. However, they do have other work commitments. So I've jumped in. I'm going to do a quick solo episode. We'll talk about the results, who is the happier with the results, who would be more upset with the results. We'll go into a bit more in-depth in those games that mattered towards the top four, towards the Premier League race, towards the relegation, which obviously it has been confirmed that Southampton will be the first team going down. But let's jump straight into it. Let's look at the results. You had Leeds United 2, Newcastle United 2, and this game, it was the early kickoff here in Australia. It kicked off at 9:30 p.m., but it started with an absolute bang. It was the 7th minute, and you had Leeds pop up with Alien scoring the goal. And you thought, Big Sam, he's done it. He's got in here. He's shown them what they need to do, and they're going to run away with this. They're going to somehow upset Newcastle. They're going to get the result they need. They're going to move out of the relegation zone. And then 21 minutes later, they get awarded a penalty, and you go, here we go. This is it. This is why they brought this manager into the helm so late. He's going to save Leeds, and Paddy Bamford's penalty is saved by Nick Pope, just to go down the other end 3 minutes later, and for Leeds to concede a penalty, which Wilson slotted away. I think Newcastle in this first half, even after they went down 1-0, while I was in a group chat and we were just saying it's coming. Newcastle's coming. They're going to get the win. They're going to score a goal. And then when they got that penalty again, they just took complete control. The overall of the game, they had 64% possession. So I think in that first half for Leeds to go ahead, it was a massive boost. And I think if you would have offered Leeds a draw at the start of this game, they would have taken it with open hands because it does go a long way in obviously keeping them in the Premier League next season. Like, yes, they still are in relegation, but now they're only 1 point away from safety. So moving into the second half, obviously in the 69th minute, Wilson does score another penalty. He did put Newcastle up 1-0, and they kind of went quiet at Elland Road. The Leeds fan thought, okay, this is it. We're going down. We had the great start, and now we're going to lose. Then, obviously, Christensen rocked up in the 79th minute, thanks to a deflection, put the ball in the back of the net, and that was it. It was a 2-2 draw. I think Leeds fans are definitely happy. There was a red card to Firpo, who, again, in this match, didn't really change anything. He stopped the one-on-one, which would have probably led to the winning goal, but he does get them a point. But we'll see if him being out for the remainder of the season will obviously hurt Leeds in the long run. But on the notion of who's the happiest side, it's 100% Leeds. Obviously for Leeds, like we said, they are 1 point outside that safety zone now. But for Newcastle United, they're definitely going to be disappointed with this. This would be a game that they looked at the run into that top four, and they would have said, you know what, let's mark this one down as a win. We'll go to Elland Road, we'll get the result, and we'll move further away from United and obviously Liverpool. But with this draw, they now are even on points with United and games. They do have a game in hand over Liverpool. However, they are only 1 point clear, and they do have some tough fixtures coming out. I'm just looking at it now. Newcastle United's upcoming fixtures are Brighton at home, Leicester, who are trying to survive, and obviously Chelsea, who if Aaron was on the podcast, he'd be telling you right now, if there's one thing Chelsea love, it's screwing over another team once their season is finished. So keep an eye on that. This could be the result that kicks Newcastle out of that top four come the end of the season. But let's keep moving. And it was Fulham 2-0 against Southampton. Obviously for Southampton, this does mean that they will spend next year in the championship. I'll be interested to see how they rebuild. What players do they lose? Obviously, Ward-Prowse, he's probably going to be a big one that some of these teams in the Premier League, middle to top of the table, will be looking at bringing in. For Southampton, it was a great tenure in the Premier League, but I think the writing has been on the wall now for a few years where they didn't really invest what they needed to invest. They got all this money from these big clubs coming in and buying their players, and it just wasn't invested right. They then got rid of their coach. They brought in a new coach, and it just didn't seem to work. It didn't seem to click. And unfortunately for them, Fulham really put that final nail in the coffin. It was a game that it was only going to go one way, 65% possession, 4 shots on target to 1. Obviously for Fulham, good result. Carlos Vinicius in the 48th minute, and then Mitrovic in the 72nd to seal the 3 points, but also seal Southampton's fate of relegation. So massive, massive shame for Southampton and their fans. But obviously, we will be looking forward to seeing if they can bounce back next season and come up into the Premier League and recruit well. For Fulham, it's another good result. It keeps them in the top half. And with Chelsea only having a possible 9 more points they can get, 1 more point in the final 2 games for Fulham will secure them a top half finish. And for a team that's been a yo-yo club, that is a massive, massive result for Fulham this year. So massive props to them. Massive props to Mitrovic, who's been absolutely killing it. But let's keep moving into Chelsea, Nottingham. For Chelsea, the season's been an absolute write-off. Let's be completely honest. They're out of all the cups. They're sitting in 11th. They have not looked good for a very long time, and those woes continued. But obviously, the big news coming out of this week, Pochettino has now signed for Chelsea. He will be their manager next year. They obviously can't get relegated. So now for Frank Lampard, it's let's work with a few combinations. Maybe he has a chat with Pochettino and goes, what do you want to see before we go into next season? He switches up the lineup. He gives some youth a chance. And we kind of see what Chelsea's made of moving into next year, where I think myself and a lot of fans of other clubs expect Chelsea to bounce back. But it was Forest that got off to the perfect start. Forest are trying to win enough games to secure safety. They currently sit 3 points above the drop. So this 1 point could be a massive point in 2 weeks' time where we sit there and go, they've survived. They got a 2-2 draw against Chelsea, and that could be the main difference. But the game started with Forest going ahead 1-0 in the 13th minute. And as a Chelsea, I guess, not fan, because Aaron is the Chelsea fan on the podcast, but someone who watches Chelsea and enjoys watching them lose, but also kind of goes, they are a good club. They are going to bounce back. And yes, we laugh at them. They're going for a rebuild, but it's just a matter of time before Chelsea clicks. I thought this was one of the games where they did click in possession. They clicked in how many shots they took, but the defense just looked a little bit leaky, and they are going to feel a bit hard done by here. They had 6 shots on target. Raheem the Dream bounces back with 2 goals in quick succession to go up 2-1, just for the defense to turn around from a corner and concede a goal late in that game. Forest, you had 2 shots on target. It's the best possible result you could have taken from this game, given Chelsea did score goals and you only had 2 shots on target. So for Forest, it could be a big point that keeps them up come the end of the season. For Chelsea, you're not getting relegated. The season's an absolute write-off how bad it's been. You look forward to next year and you wait to see what Poch can do with this squad and what happens in the transfer windows. But let's keep moving into Aston Villa versus Tottenham, and Villa's run continues. Now, this is an Aston Villa side that when we did our predictions at the start of the year, some of us had them mid-table, some of us had them a little bit lower, just surviving relegation, but they now sit in 8th place, equal with Tottenham Hotspur. So this result was a massive swing, and what it does do is it pushes, I guess, Aston Villa. They've got the momentum. They don't have the goal difference, but what they do have is that momentum. And I know I've said it twice already, but it's huge going into these final 2 games where Villa could potentially poach a Conference League. And if you would have told me when Unai Emery took over that he was going to get this team to, okay, at one stage they were fighting for a Europa League spot. They're only 1 point off, but Brighton does have 2 games. But a team that could potentially play in Europe next year, a team that will be in the top half come the end of this season, I would have said you're absolutely crazy. Now, if City go out, they win the league, you're going to have Pep in the conversation for Manager of the Year. Arteta, he's had a massive season at Arsenal. You're going to have them in contention for Coach of the Year. But I really think we do have to look at Unai Emery as that Manager of the season, because I think since he came in, he is either first or he's just below the amount of points that Manchester City has come in. So he would be running first or second if the table started when he came into Aston Villa. So massive props to him. Massive result for Aston Villa. They move into 8th. They have a chance at Europe. For Tottenham, it all but ends their top 4 hopes. Europa is looking like the best thing they can get, but even in saying that, they can mathematically not catch Liverpool, and if Brighton just win one of their catch-up games and draw one, they're mathematically out of Europa League and they'll have to settle for Conference League. So we'll see how that one goes, and we'll see which coach does come in to replace them next year. But let's move into my boys. It was Manchester United 2-0, coming off the back of 2 very, very, very embarrassing results. We were at home against Wolves. there's not much to say here. I think you look at the stats and you can tell that this was a game that United dominated. They should have, let's be honest, if it wasn't for Martial being up top who couldn't finish for majority of that first half and Anthony missing inches wide with his shots, it could have been 4 or 5-0 in that first half. Now, we had 27 attempts to 5, 9 shots on target to 0. We dominated the corners. Obviously, Wolves did have possession. The expected goals, 2.51 to 0.34. But we've been here before. And as a United fan, we're still clunky. We're giving away the ball. We're losing it in midfield when we're not under pressure. And it's a hard watch. But obviously, the pass that Anthony played into the box for Martial was a great play. The composure to kind of slot it across the box when, let's be honest, if you're in the box as an attacking player, I think Aaron will agree with me here. He does play on the left wing. You're thinking shoot, shoot, shoot. But Anthony had the composure to stop, look up, find Martial. He gets his tap in. We go up 1-0 in the first half. Then the game kind of rolls and rolls. And the 69th minute, Weghurst comes on for Martial. And honestly, myself, I don't really understand that substitution, whether it's him trying to go, you know what, Martial, we need you to be fit, especially moving into the FA Cup. Maybe it was that, but I just don't understand that trade when we do have that substitute. Sorry, when we do have youth players on the bench that can come on and they can obviously make a difference. I would have loved to see Alenga get a run over him. I would have loved to see Palestrian. I hope we do wrap up the top 4 in a week or two so that we can see Palestrian at least have a 15, 20-minute run, give him the chance to show what he's made of moving into next year. We have Ahmad coming back that would be brilliant. He's had a great season with Sunderland, and in the morning, who knows, he might put him in a playoff to make it into the Premier League. So we'll see how that one goes. But what we did see is our youth player in the 82nd minute, Garnacho replaces Jadon Sancho, and 12 minutes later, a brilliant ball by Bruno Fernandes and the composure from Garnacho to score a goal. He's probably going to be a future number 7 at United. He's got the composure. He's got the arrogance in him. And he's just got that absolute baller mentality. So great goal by him. Great win by United. What that does do is it does put us 1 point clear of obviously Liverpool in that top 4 chase. It puts us equal on points with Newcastle. So let's be honest, we win 2 of our next games. We're guaranteed that we will. 2 of our next 3 games, we're guaranteed that we will have top 4. But what it also does, it means if Newcastle slips up, there is a world where United and Liverpool both make the top 4 and Newcastle miss out. So a massive, massive win for United. But let's move into Crystal Palace taking on AFC Bournemouth. Crystal Palace 2, Bournemouth 0. Again, for Crystal Palace, it was a game that didn't really matter too much for them. They now have the possibility where they could finish above Chelsea, but 11th, 12th, it doesn't really matter in the Premier League. You're safe, and that's kind of all that matters to your fans come the end of the season. For Bournemouth, you're on 39 points now. You look down, you see Leeds. They can only get a possible 6 more points. They can get to 37. So, again, for both these teams, they are now safe. It doesn't really matter. This game meant nothing coming into it rather than let's finish the season with a little bit of momentum. So, massive props to Palace for getting the win. But for Bournemouth, it's good to see that they're going to be in the Prem next year. A lot of teams did have them going down. And if you get the chance, definitely jump into their TikTok page. I'm not sure exactly what their handle is, but there's a very good video of where they show all the predictions of teams having on podcasters having Bournemouth going down and their reaction to it. Like, yeah, cop that, we're staying up. So definitely have a look there. But let's look at Manchester City. They're the champions in waiting. They now arguably have 2 hands on the title thanks to a result a little bit lower, but they're just dominant. And arguably, they're looking like they're going to go to treble. Hopefully, I'm praying as a United supporter that Madrid can stop them. But obviously, 1 hand on the title and they need 1 more result to secure. They've played 35 games, they're on 85 points. Arsenal have played 36 and they're on 81. So 1 more win for Manchester City from 3 games. They wrap up the Premier League title. So let's get their little pen out, whatever it is, engrave their name on the trophy. And let's hope Madrid can do a job on them in the Champions League, or let's just hope we can do a job on them in the FA Cup, because it's going to be scary if they do win the treble. But this game here, they did win 3-0 against Everton. And I'm going to talk more obviously about Everton, but I just got to say this Manchester City team, the mentality of, we look at Arsenal, and I think the reason they say bottle, say didn't bottle, say lost it, whatever it is, the reason they didn't win the league this year is their players have never been in this mentality of we need to win 15 games straight, for example, to win the league. However, Manchester City, they go down 1-0. They're down by 8 points in the league. They just keep going and keep going. They're like a juggernaut. Their momentum, their attitude before towards a game, it doesn't change. They go out, they win a game, they move to the next one. They go out, they lose a game, they're already preparing for the next one. And it's absolutely scary because I think this is 4 of the last 5 Premier League titles will now be Manchester City's. And I don't see him slowing down. Haaland breaking the goal scoring record. Brilliant. Pep, another title to him. But let's talk about Everton for a second here. They do now sit 1 point above relegation. So they're 1 point above Leeds, 2 points above Leicester. And obviously Southampton, again, we won't talk too much about them because they are going down, but they are 8 points above them. So they can't finish last, but we do sit in a realistic world where Everton could be in relegation going into the final day. They could get relegated on the final day. They have some massive, massive games coming up. Obviously, they go to Wolves this week. They'll be hopeful of getting a result there. And then they obviously host Bournemouth on the final day, which could be the do or die for his club. But I think they will have just enough to stay up. And even if they don't, I don't see Leeds or Leicester picking up another point this season, if I'm being completely honest. So Everton, it is scary. Let's hope you stay up because you're starting to become Premier League furniture where we don't expect you to go down. So we'll see how that one goes. But let's move into the third last game of the round. It was Brentford taking on West Ham United. And it was, I guess, a result that we all expected. We did expect West Ham to put up a bit more of a fight, but obviously we did look at this result and see how the teams are playing and go, okay, yeah, Brentford's going to take this win. It was 2-0 early. Mbeumo, scored in the 20th minute, and Wissa scored in the 43rd to make it 2-0. There was a disallowed goal for handball to Danny Ings, but besides that, it was a pretty routine game for Brentford. Looking at the stats, Brentford expected 3.6 goals. West Ham expected 0.22, 10 shots on target to 4, 53% to 47, 24 goal attempts to 4, and that's the tail of the tape. This game could have been a lot worse. It could have blown out, but for West Ham, where do you look next? Obviously, you're still competing, obviously, you're still competing in the Europa League, so they did obviously, the Europa Conference League, so they did obviously rest a few players here. They are all but mathematically safe. Something massive would have to happen where they lose both games and Leeds win both games by enough goals to somehow jump them. But I do think they have done enough to stay up in the Premier League this year, and I do believe they will stay up. And obviously, we'll see how they go in that Europa Conference League tie. But Arsenal-Brighton, massive game. It's all but handed Man City the title. It was Brighton 3, Arsenal 0. Arsenal fans will tell you we didn't bottle the league, but let's look at this game. In the first half, 62% to Brighton. Again, only one shot on target each. It was a very close game in that first half. They definitely went back and forth, but in the second half, 5 shots to 1 on target, 3 goals to 0, 1.44 to 0.44 expected goals. It was in the 51st minute. Yasisko scored. Obviously, then again, it went very, very late. Undav scored in the 86th minute, and Estepinen scored in the 90 plus 6 to all but seal the title for Manchester City, and Arsenal all but confirmed to not have a chance to win this title. But let's be completely honest. Did they bottle the league? Yes. I guess you could say yes. But for them to win the league, they're going to have scored at least 95 points, and not many teams in Premier League history could have done that. So I think we do live in a world where, yes, they did bottle, I guess you could say, but let's be honest, with a juggernaut like Man City, most teams would have collapsed and City would have won the league. But hey, for Brighton, let's talk about Brighton. It's a massive win. It does now put them 7 points behind Liverpool, 2 games in hand. It could mean after they catch up, they are 1 point behind Liverpool as they chase down into that final Champions League spot. They win, they could be 5 points behind United. If something happens with Newcastle and United, they don't win a point. If Liverpool bottle 2, hey, there's a mathematical chance that they could still move into the top 4, but I think they will settle for Europa and a top 5, top 6 spot this year. But let's move into the final game of the round. It was this morning. It was Liverpool 3, Leicester City 0. Curtis Jones was an absolute fire. Mo Salah providing the assist in the 33rd minute. Curtis Jones 1-0. 36-minute, 3 minutes later, who is it again? It's Mo Salah again, assisting Curtis Jones 2-0. We move into the second half, and once again, it is Mo Salah with his third assist of the game. He's assisting Trent Alexander-Arnold. It is a 3-0 result. Pretty routine game for Liverpool. 67% possession, 16 shots, only 5 on target. So I guess a little bit lucky when it comes to 5 shots on target, 3 goals, but they did have 16 shots. So the story of the tale was Liverpool are most likely going to win this game, and that's what happened. So for Liverpool, 1 point behind United, 1 point behind Newcastle. They have played an extra game, but they will be hopeful that one of these teams does slip up, if not in their catch-up game in the final 2 games of the season, and they can sneak into either 3rd or 4th. And if you think they were in 11th battling with Chelsea not too long ago, it's a massive, massive props and massive respect to Liverpool for turning that around and for Klopp being able to turn that around. But like we said, it was just a matter of time, and we expect this side to probably be competing for the title come again next year. For Leicester, you're 2 points in the relegation zone now. You're on 30. You've got 2 games to go. You've got everything to go now to survive. You're playing Newcastle at Newcastle, and then you're playing West Ham at home. It's 2 massive games that could lead them to either survival or the championship next season. So stay tuned on that one. Liverpool, ecstatic with this result. Leicester City, very upset. But just to recap, obviously, Southampton are the first team relegated. Man City need 1 more win to lift the title. And running down the ladder, you've got Man City in first, Arsenal, Newcastle, and United to round out the top 4. Liverpool and Brighton in 5th and 6th, and Tottenham currently holding the Conference League spot. You've then got Villa, Brentford, and Fulham in the top 10 to round out, with Chelsea, Palace, Wolves, Bournemouth, West Ham, Forest, and Everton from 11th to 17th. With Leeds and Leicester in 18th and 19th. And obviously, like we said, already relegated Southampton in 20th. So, guys, we will be back. We will review the last 2 episodes. We will have Morty. We will have Aaron. They're working late, so they weren't able to jump on. But hit like, hit subscribe, and we'll see you for Matchday 37.